The Navigating Disability podcast often discusses topics including disability, injury, mental health, and mentions of sensitive issues such as trauma and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care while listening. Welcome to Navigating Disability. Today we're joined by Clare Stewart, CEO of Youngcare and a powerful advocate for people with disability. Clare's journey spans a career as a barrister, author, former Mayor of Noosa, and long-time supporter of Youngcare. After a life-changing accident left her with a disability, Clare became a passionate voice for accessible housing and inclusion. From volunteer to board director, and now CEO of Youngcare, Clare brings both lived experience and strong leadership to the role. Join us as we talk about resilience, advocacy, and creating change. Welcome, Clare.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us to deliver some of your experience and your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how your start in disability happened?
Yeah, absolutely. My start in disability happened on the 18th of August 2000 when I had a catastrophic accident. I was a fully abled 23-year-old working at the multinational firm KPMG. I had a law degree, a business degree, and was living as any other young person was, had a career. My big concerns were around work and study and all those things. And obviously having a very active social life and good friends in Sydney. I used to run 10 kilometres every morning. So exercise was a big part of my life. And on the 18th of August, I went for my usual 10-kilometre morning jog, left my unit in Bondi Beach that I was sharing with my flatmate, who was also, she was a medical student, and ran the same route as I had done every day of living the last sort of 9 months in Sydney. When I crossed onto the pedestrian crossing and went to cross and looked both ways, and a garbage truck rounded the corner and by the driver's own admission failed to see me. And he stopped, but he stopped on top of me. And both of my legs bore the full weight of the garbage truck for the 37 minutes that I was trapped. So in that instant, my life changed forevermore, as did my family's. Every aspect of my life changed. I thought I would die that morning. I was given enough morphine at the scene to kill a horse. The first thing the ambulance people did when they got to me was put over towels over my legs because I couldn't see that my legs were no longer legs. They were just puddles of muscle and flesh. And I thought, this is how it's going to end. And I was taken to St Vincent's where I was triage code 1, which means I'm either patient's deceased or actively having CPR. And I entered into a 13-hour surgery and woke up in an induced coma 3 days later. And the first thing I said was, do I have my legs? And the answer was yes, but. And that but was huge. I managed to keep, I've had 37 operations on both legs. I had to learn to walk again. I was in a wheelchair for a number of months. I was on canes and crutches. I walk with a limp now. I'm a disabled person as a result of that accident. So that's when my journey with disability started.
Sorry, that's just such a polarizing story. Just with regards to when that occurred, who was there for you in those moments? Was your parents there to support you, friends and things like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just turned 23 and I was a Brisbane girl, Queensland girl, but my parents were living in Toowoomba and they got the call that morning. And my mother initially got a call saying, your daughter's broken both legs, because they didn't know how she would react. They didn't know on the other end of the line how a parent would react. And I'm an only child. So when I was on my way to the hospital in the ambulance, I was conscious and they put me on the phone to my mother and she said, don't worry, darling, we're driving down. I said, why are you driving? I knew that I was in life or death. I knew that I probably wouldn't last. She had only been told, unbeknownst to me, that I had broken both legs. It wasn't until we got to the hospital and my flatmate, who was a med student, on the phone and said, Mum, we're getting her ready for surgery. And Mum's thinking, that doesn't sound right. Why are they getting ready? They put her on the phone to my flatmate, Melissa Gann, a medical student. She said, no, Mrs. Saltman, they're talking about having to amputate Claire's legs. They're taking her into surgery. And so my parents made the mad dash from Toowoomba, jumped on the plane. And so they were the first two people I saw when I woke up on the Monday. And I was 6 months in hospital and I had all my girlfriends and my friends were in Queensland. I had only been, and I had a number of work friends from KPMG and they were terrific. They'd come up and visit. But it was really that close set of friends and my mum who she left her home, her state, and her job to sit by my bedside for 6 months. And we weren't a wealthy family. So she moved into my apartment in Bondi Beach and used to get the 389 bus up every day to the hospital. And she'd change me and toilet me and wash me. And she'd bring in the flowers that came in and the fax. It was long before the text messages, letters and cards. And we put all the cards I got on my wall to give me hope and encouragement. So it was that great line in life. In prosperity, our friends know us. In adversity, we know our friends. And I think that for me was ever rung more true.
I love that. That's such a good saying. Those 6 months in hospital, did you ever feel like giving up?
Yeah, there were days where there were some really dark times, and I never really told anyone how I thought or felt. And I wrote a book and had it published in 2013 called Standing on My Own Two Feet, because I had to learn to walk again. The first time I looked at my legs, it was like I'd been hit by the truck all over again. But the hardest time was coming out of hospital, because when you're in hospital, you're in an insulated environment. And today I managed 8 steps to my door. So yesterday I managed 10. I'm going backwards. So it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And a lot of my rehab was to learn to walk again, walking up and down the hospital corridor. But it was when I got out of hospital that I realized that I was a disabled person. Life wasn't like it had been. And I remember saying to my dad, I just want things to go back to how they once were. And he said, you have to get used to, I want to go back to my old life. He said to me, Claire, you have to get used to your new life. And that sort of hit me really hard, because I didn't want to get used to it. I liked my old life. I liked being that fully abled 23-year-old who wore short skirts and high heels and ran every day, did everything, worked hard. I'd sacrificed much to be where I was in that position at 23, and to have everything taken away, it was hard. Yeah, and there were days that were very dark.
So in those moments of self-doubt and questioning, what strategies and mindsets did you use to get yourself out of that funk, to just go, okay, this is it, and I'm going to move forward with it the best way I can?
There are a lot of what ifs, if onlys. If only I hadn't gone for a jog, what if?
Yeah.
And they're questions I learned, and they're the questions you ask yourself for a long time. But I learned pretty early on that I'd never get the answers to those questions.
Yeah.
God's not going to come down and go, Claire, this happened to you because of this and this. You just not. So to have those questions, it was just pointless. My mother said to me once, and I talk about this a lot when I do a lot of public speaking. She said, it's not the accident that will define you, but it's what you do with it and where you go from here. And she was right. The accident had happened, and it was a tragic accident, but it didn't define my future. It certainly changed it and made it more difficult. I could spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair in the corner of a room, or I could live my life to the best of my ability. And that took a long time. That's a journey. But there's that great line from the Shawshank Redemption. I guess it comes down to one thing. You either get busy living or you get busy dying. And it was time for me to get busy living. So I went back when I came out of hospital, and I did my Master of Laws at the University of Sydney and graduated from that when I could, getting back into a voluntary capacity into the workforce, because I had to have something beyond this hazy fog of trauma recovery. So and I remember my mother also said to me once, she said, things will get better, Claire, I promise. And they did. Yeah. In fact, they became great, but there was times when I didn't know if I could go on.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about you didn't actually probably acknowledge that you were disabled until you left the hospital. What was it that actually made you realize that you were disabled out in the real world?
And look, it's a term I don't use often, because, and I like when your headline, it says navigating, and you've said disability, but you've crossed out the dis, so it's navigating ability. I think, I walk with a limp. I have two fused ankles. I have a knee that doesn't bend. I have incredibly scarred and disfigured legs. I can never take a bike ride with my children because I can't bend my knee. I can't go for a swim because I risk infection with my legs. They're covered in skin grafts. I don't ever think, I acknowledge that I'm a disabled person, but I don't focus on it. I focus on what I can do, not what I can't do. I think if you focus on what you can't, if I focused on what I couldn't do, I would be an absolute basket case. I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. So I focus on what I can do, and I try to not let the accident affect my life. And it hasn't, apart from obviously the obvious things and the physical ailments. And my life now is very much, I would think, similar to what it would have been if I hadn't have had the accident. And that's because I've spent 25 years working at it. I think it's so important to not let what has happened to you define you. It shouldn't be, yeah, I remember one of my best mates said to me, you are so much more than your injuries. And it's really powerful. We're all so much more than our injuries. You lose a breast in breast cancer. Who cares? We're so much more. You lose a leg, you lose an arm. Who cares? We are all so much more than our injuries.
And look, we all know in the community that people with disability, they're judged. There's biases, there's discrimination. Have you ever faced that? Or
I face them. I face them pretty. Oh, I saw you hobbling along. Oh, what happened to you? Oh, you got a limp. Yeah. I faced some, like, people are thoughtless, but have I faced any discrimination per se? No, but I have faced a lot of pretty rude comments, pretty hard to take comments, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, sticks and stones, right?
And look, we've heard a lot from people that we've interviewed saying that it's all in how you approach the question. So some people are honestly curious and want to know how you are and how you came to be disabled and things like that. But it's all in the delivery.
It is. I used to get into cabs shortly after I left hospital, and I'd be going from rehab appointment to rehab back to the hospital. And I'd be literally on two crutches, 5 minutes to get me into the cab. And the cabbie would go, what happened? And I used to get quite teary telling the story. I don't now, but early stages I did. I used to just say, oh, look, I just fell over at home or something. And then I'd get a diatribe of 5 minutes from the cabbie telling me how most accidents happen at home and how it's so dangerous. That's the thing. You just roll with it. Yeah.
You talk about it's been a long time with you dealing with it. Is it something that you have to deal with every day in terms of acceptance and moving forward in such a positive mindset? Or is there a time when you can go, actually, no, I'm over this. I'm done. I'm good.
I used to get really, even a couple of years after the accident, I'd walk past a dress shop because I'm constrained. I've got to always cover my legs. I've got to wear pressure stockings all the time. My legs are so disfigured. A medical report said Miss Stewart's situation would be enhanced or made better if she didn't have her legs, because they're so hard to ensure that they're kept safe. Every day I've had 4 serious cases of cellulitis where I've ended up in hospital because I've had an infection. They have a crushed lymphatic system. Every day is a shower in a different shower to the rest of the family. I'm like the bubble boy from Seinfeld. I have to check under my toes so I don't have any little, because my toes turn over because I can't move them really. So I've got to make sure there's no cuts, risk of infection and getting an infection in my legs is a concern. I manage it to the best I can. But yeah, there were days initially that, and even today, I try to avoid full length mirrors when I can, but I had one in the house today and I just happened to look at it. I was like, God, my legs look terrible. I don't look at them now and cry like I used to, but you're like, Jesus, they're bad.
How did that comment make you feel? Or how do you feel about that comment in that Claire would be better off if she had have lost her legs?
It was in a medico-legal report, and it's in my book. Miss Stewart's situation would be enhanced potentially if basically they were saying it's going to cost so much money for her to maintain and keep her legs. It's the truth. That's the truth. I always, though, fought to keep my legs, and I always, whatever it came down to, I always thought if they are ever taken, it won't be because of my decision. It will be because they have to be.
Yeah. So do you suffer any pain, like ongoing pain?
Yeah, all the time. I live with pain, but you get on with it. I don't take any pain medication. On my worst days, I'll take 2 Panadol and Voltaren. And that's when I'm furniture walking, when it's that painful. No, that doesn't happen very often. That might happen. It's only if I put pressure on the knee or I've walked on an uneven surface, like on sand or carrot, that might happen once every six months. But I do get a lot of pain standing up, walking. But I have forgotten what not being in pain is like. And so you just live with it. You just box on.
In front of the other.
That's right.
How did it affect your family, your children, your partner? Does your disability have any effect on them?
So I had my accident when I was 23. I met my husband when I was 30. My legs are, as I said, very disfigured. I think it's something that you just, when you marry someone or you marry the whole person. My husband has never, he doesn't, to the point where he's probably actually pretty tough. He has never let me feel sorry for myself or thought of me as any different as them being his strong, independent wife. If I say I'm in pain, I get very little sympathy in the house. And I have 3 children who've got a 13-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy, and an 8-year-old girl. And they don't know any different to mum walking with a limp. Apart from those things like taking a bike ride or doing those sort of things, I pretty much do everything. There's nothing really that we don't do. So I think it's just they've grown up with it. And the big part of writing the book was as a legacy to my children. It's why does mum walk fine? Like, why does mum walk with a limp? What happened to mum? It really was, here's the story. So I hope that they will read that one day and be proud of me.
They haven't read it yet?
No, I don't think the boys, I think they haven't actually. To get my 13-year-old or 12-year-old son to read anything is a challenge.
Very true.
But they're probably getting to an age where they would understand it. Certainly the 13-year-old would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some misconceptions about living with a disability that you wish more people understood?
I think I'm CEO of a charity now, and we're a charity in the disability space, and it's a wonderful charity and an organisation. I think it is that. That's a good question. I think it's in the workplace. I think employers need to be aware. I was on a panel for DEI the other week, and when I was doing the research on it, I couldn't believe it. That the average median income across Australia for someone with a disability is actually about half of what it is with someone who is fully able. And it was just quite incredible to read the stats around it, and the amount of, I think there's something like 82% of people are employed with an ability, whereas only 52% of people with a disability are employed in median, and their crude numbers. But so it is harder for us to be in the workplace because employers should be mindful that it's not just about the workplace and making it accessible and putting in a ramp. It's actually about the transport. It's harder to get to and from work. When you look at, it's harder. You might go to a doctor, go to a rehab. Managing the disability takes time. Everything is that much harder and takes that much more time. A national corporate was very positive about their new building here in Brisbane. And they were waxing lyrical about how great it was and fully accessible. Someone in a wheelchair couldn't swipe their access card because it was above all the numbers. So they couldn't even get to their floor. In the kitchen, they had these cool high benches and bench tops and sinks. Someone in a wheelchair can't access. So I think it's being mindful of the challenges as an employer and putting mechanisms in place that make it as easy as possible, because it is that much harder. Yeah. So I think that's a big thing that I would really say to employers. And when you're building a building, get some people who actually have a disability to give you some feedback on it.
Because it's really not that hard. The level of the height of the bench, does it matter if it's up here or down here?
Correct.
Well, if it's down here.
Getting into a lift.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So,
how has disability changed the direction of your life in terms of, has it impacted your work? Has it made you want to go into a different direction to what you probably were going in at 23?
I think it's made me more empathetic to people. I was a pretty 23-year-old, I had a great school, like great university, was living large as a young professional. So I didn't have much focus on anything except myself. So I think as most 23-year-olds do, but I think it's made me certainly have more empathy for people. It's made me realize that life can change in a heartbeat through no fault of your own. It's And when you have an accident, I once watched an Oprah Winfrey show, and a rape victim was on, and the lady said, when I was raped, my whole family was raped. And so when you have an accident or a catastrophic accident or an injury, your whole family has that injury. So I think it's made me really appreciate my family, the sacrifices my parents made. So has it taken me in a different direction? I met my husband at the opening of the Youngcare apartments when I was working there as a volunteer back in 2007. He was a friend of one of the founders. So I probably wouldn't have met Cam, if I hadn't have been at that opening, if I hadn't been working at Youngcare, if I wouldn't working at Youngcare, I wouldn't have been there if I had my accident. So it probably has in many aspects. And people say to me, do you wish you hadn't had your accident? And so of course you do. First answer is of course. But then you go, if I hadn't have had my accident, would I have met my husband? Would I have the children I have today? I have been incredibly lucky and feel incredibly privileged. And as I said, it's come with hard work and determination. I feel very blessed. But it has made me far more empathetic, have a lot of empathy for people. I think that's important, an acknowledgement that it is hard.
Yeah. So what are your, sorry, Kate, sorry, what are your hopes for the future?
For me?
Yeah. And for the community at large, because there's so many challenges for everyone in the disability community, and a lot of challenges that sometimes they can't face on their own. What do you hope for the future for them and for yourself?
Like everything, it comes down to funding. I would like to see more fund. And look, we've got the NDIS, but people with a disability are certainly on statistics financially far worse off. I'd like to see more people with disabilities in the workforce. I would like to see more just things like, I know there's been an issue in New South Wales, and I believe it's being addressed, but where it's almost impossible if you're in a wheelchair to get a taxi because they just drive off. And I've heard stories where people have sat on the side of the road for 12 hours, not 12 years, 12 hours. And this is in New South Wales. I'd like to see fully accessible transport. I'd like to see more hotel rooms. And when I talk about accessible, it's not tokenism. It's not, oh, look, we've got a wide shower. It's got to be everything. Like
just make it standard. Just be inclusive. It's if you're doing a new build, make it to spec so everyone can use it. But it's the forethought, right? It's not a lot of it.
Housing's a big one. We have a grants program here at Youngcare. We give close to $1 million a year away in grants, but our last grants program was $464,000 oversubscribed, and we had 109 applications. Now, these grants enable people to stay at home. We are funding things that are falling through the cracks with the NDIS. So I'd like to see a round table with disability sector, government, and really address, especially at that federal level with the NDIS, of what is falling through the cracks. And I'd like to see, and look, the state government here in Queensland since October have been terrific with us. They've been incredibly supportive of us. I plan to, over the next couple of years, in my role, is to have a strong advocacy position for Youngcare to the government, whether it be on getting data about people in public housing and who has a disability in public housing and how can we help them, or if it's finding land for more specialist disability accommodation, of which we specialise in and build exemplar and then the highest standards. So having that advocacy piece, and it may not be necessarily formalised, but it's something that you're constantly talking to those who make the decisions, and whether it's the government or it's major corporates or whoever it is, talking about this. Is it accessible? Is it inclusive? What does this mean for someone with a disability? Is it close to transport? Is that transport accessible? Even getting off a train, how many lifts are there? One. How many people in wheelchairs? How long is that going to take to wait for that lift if you can only fit 1 or 2 wheelchairs in at a time? So all those things need to be on the table. But my hope is that, and I think we're making absolute strides. And I think that's why organisations like ours and that advocacy piece is so powerful, because you have to be a voice for those who don't have one.
Yeah.
And you're 100% correct that it does. I believe a lot of it comes down to money, and having a disability is more expensive. We all acknowledge that, but it is what it is. Can you tell us a little bit about Youngcare and what they do?
Yeah, so Youngcare's a terrific story. Youngcare started it's our 20th year this year, so it's our 20th anniversary year, which is amazing. Youngcare started in 2005, and it started in a very tragic of circumstances. A wonderful husband and wife, beautiful couple. The wife developed MS at a very early stage in her 20s. And so by her early 30s required full-time care outside the home. And there was nowhere, when it got to a point where Dave could no longer look after Siobhan, the only option was to aged care. And so he had these three great mates he'd known forever. And they used to catch up at the pub and they'd say, "How are you, Dave?" And he'd go, "It's tough." And so they decided to band together, the four of them, and build these first ever state-of-the-art Youngcare apartments. Now, this is long before any government's talking about SDA, anyone's doing it. And so we raised, and I started with the boys in April 2006 as a volunteer. We raised, and the boys raised, over 18 months, about $4 million to build these state-of-the-art Youngcare apartments that are still there at Cinnamon Park. And there was a story that featured in 60 Minutes, and Youngcare was a disruptor in the disability space in the very best of reasons. And it was the first time, largely due to the advocacy of Youngcare in 2006, young people in nursing homes was put on the Council of Australian Government's agenda in COAG. So people started talking about it. It was something no one wanted to talk about before, about young people in nursing homes and this horrific circumstances. So since that time, over the last 20 years, we've gone on to build over 20 or partnered with or built over to build 20 houses. And we don't call them facilities, we call them houses because that's what they are, they're homes. Housed about 117 young Australians. And when I talk about young Australians, I talk about the ages of 18 to 65. We've given away around $12 million in grants, taken over 70,000 phone calls with our Youngcare Connect, which is a great service we have, which helps people navigate disability, and handed out about 2,000 grants. 2,000 people have received our grants. Now, we've done all this with no recurrent government funding.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah, so it's extraordinary. Yeah, so it is extraordinary.
People power.
Yeah, it is. And that is exactly right. It is a community who came together. And in our 20th year, we've got some more SDA houses to build, which are terrific. We've got a grants program that we continually are oversubscribed for. Like every other organisation, we need funding. We continue to work. We've got a very strong fundraising team. We continue to work hard in that space. But I'm excited by the future for Youngcare. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of people to help. And we need to continue to be that voice.
And it's definitely needed in the community.
Absolutely.
We need more people fighting the fight, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've been with them for a long time. They started in 2003, did you say? And
2005, and I came on board again. A very Brisbane story. I had a friend with one of the a friend of a friend was a founder, and so I came on board with the boys in 2006, and worked as a volunteer for a couple of years, and then was very fortunate enough to come back onto the board in about 2018. And when I stood down as Mayor of Noosa and I lost the state seat up there, when I ran for that, I was back in Brisbane and an opportunity presented itself. Our current CEO was retiring, so I threw my hat in the ring, and here we are.
What an amazing story. Thank you so much, Clare, for sharing your personal journey and obviously Youngcare's. What you're doing is so important for the whole community, and I hope that in some capacity we can work together in the future.
Thank you. And look, thank you for having me. And it's so important to be on these podcasts because we need to have these conversations. We need to highlight, and we need to, as I said, keep coming back. We have to be a voice. It's so important.
Excellent.
So thank you.
More.
Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Nice
you.
to talk to you.
Take care.